Thank you, Joe, for those words of advice and inspiration. We appreciate your participation today. Our commencement speaker, Professor Solomon Darwin, is an alum of Golden Gate University, earning his MBA in 1980. Mr. Darwin is an esteemed faculty member at the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley, serving as the executive director of two prominent research centers, the Center for Corporate Innovation and the Center for Growth Markets. He works closely with senior executives from over 40 global firms to expand their markets, and he has authored several impactful books, including The Untouchables on Neglected Populations, How to Create Smart Villages, focusing on overlooked rural regions, How to Think Like a CEO of the Planet, addressing our neglected planet, The Road from Sick Care to Health Care, examining neglected health care for the sick. He has also, in his spare time, established in India a school for the untouchables and a hospital for the poor. With extensive leadership experience in corporate management and academia, Professor Darwin is an expert in open innovation and open business models, advising multinational executives and government leaders worldwide. He is actively involved in executive programs and workshops across 18 countries, serving as an honorary professor at prestigious universities in Europe, China, South Korea, and India. Additionally, he sits on international boards and advises the World Health Organization on digital healthcare. In Silicon Valley, he directs international innovation conferences and chairs Chief Innovation Officer roundtables on emerging technologies and business models. Recognized for his innovative leadership and passion for teaching, Professor Darwin has received numerous awards as an international speaker and educator. He inspires students from various disciplines, teaching courses in open innovation, scalable smart cities and villages, and business models for emerging economies. He is hailed as the father of the Smart Village movement, leading initiatives commissioned by the Indian government under UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business. Before joining the Haas School, Professor Darwin served as an associate professor at the University of Southern California and held senior executive roles in finance and the telecommunication industries. Mr. Darwin, we are honored to have you speak to us today, and we are pleased to be able to recognize your impressive contributions to society as a scholar, a writer, a speaker, and a teacher by conferring upon you the Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters. I'm now going to hood you, and I have a proclamation to read. Let me read your proclamation. We do have a proclamation for you, and it reads as follows. Whereas Solomon Darwin, MBA, 1980, has achieved a distinguished career as a teacher, author, and leader in corporate management, open business models, smart villages, and business models of emerging economies, he is recognized by peers and executives for his innovative leadership in founding the Smart Village movement, has served as a global advisor to the World Health Organization and other senior executives. It is with great resolve, the Board of Trustees extends to you this honorary degree of Humane Letters, April 29th, 2023. Congratulations.
President Fike, Provost White, Vice Presidents, Deans, Trustees, faculty, staff, students, friends, and parents and family. It's great to be here today. I entitled my little comments here as Born for a Purpose. All of you were born for a purpose, and that was ordained even before the foundations of the world. Golden Gate University has given me hope and a future at a time when I gave up on doing an MBA. Back then, schools required GMAT. As a very poor student, I did not have even the courage to try to take the exam. I barely passed college courses with a lot of C's, D's, and W's on my transcripts. Part of the reason was I worked full-time graveyard shifts at Sambo's restaurant in San Bruno. Worked as a janitor and dishwasher. And when I went to school during the day, I could hardly keep my eyes open, let alone pay attention to the lectures. Once I graduated with poor grades, there was little hope for me, given the high unemployment rate during the time resulting from a worldwide financial crash of 1978. The stock market lost 90% of its value. The interest rates peaked above 13%. These were the days of Paul Volcker. The 1978 to 1979 oil shock caused by a drop in oil production in the wake of the Iranian Revolution hit us very hard. A terrible time for me to get a job. One of my family members and friends asked me, what are my plans? Following my graduation, what would I do? Given the bleak economic outlook and my poor performance in college, I told them I plan to continue as a dishwasher and busboy at Sambo's restaurant. I was just grateful to have a job that paid me $1.65 an hour, which is the minimum wage at that time. My neighbor suggested that I should invest in an MBA, but I said, I do not have the grades to get into a program like that. I would not pass the GMAT, given my weak foundation. He said, there's one college called Golden Gate University that does not require GMAT, but would admit you based on your motivation. I came down here and met Dean Price at the time, who welcomed me warmly and arranged for a government loan to pursue and complete my program. Upon graduating from this fine university, I found that the odds of me finding a job, given that I had no professional experience, was very hard. At such a time as this, I was greatly helped by caring professors of this great university. Their recommendations enabled me to secure a great job at Motorola as senior financial analyst. Motorola was the Google of its day. It was a world leader in electronics, working on communication systems like the Apollo space missions. The photos of Neil Armstrong setting foot on the moon were taken by the Motorola cameras. I was so proud to work for that company. I was greatly blessed when many of my college colleagues could not secure a job. For this, I'm grateful for this institution, for being a part of God's plan for me. Let me share with you a few words about my journey and how I got there. The many setbacks in my life were due to the location of my birthplace and the family in which I was born into. I was born an untouchable into a scavenger caste that cleaned public toilets in a remote village in India called Mori. My village school was a thatched hut with mud floor, run by a poorly educated teacher who taught all the elementary grades under one roof. I could not go beyond 5th grade even after reaching 16 years of age. I arrived here in San Bruno at the age of 17, along with my dad, mom, and 4 younger siblings. My father was very fortunate to secure a green card under a special program for people like him under the Nixon administration. My father wanted me to admit me in the 6th grade class, where I would look like a big, dumb teenager at 17 among little kids. I refused to enroll into the elementary school. I wanted to end my life right then. Following several months of depression, I had the courage to walk to a college located behind my house where I lived, called Skyline College. I nervously told the lady at the front desk I wanted to go to college. "Where did you come from?" she asked. I said, "I came from India, and I do not have any transcripts." She said, "You know that foreign students jump through a lot of hoops to get admitted. Since you do not even have transcripts, this makes it impossible for you to get an admission here." Tears ran down my cheeks. There seemed to be no hope for me. My heart sank back into depression. Once again, I turned around and went through the double doors, and I was turning the corner on the street, and I heard footsteps running after me. It was the lady. She said, "You seem to be a very passionate man." I spoke to Dean Wyatt, and he said that he'll admit you based on a special admission test. I nervously asked, "How much time do I have to prepare for this?" She said, "The test will be given after the summer break. You have 2 months. I was hoping that within 3 months, I would learn all that I need to know to pass the exam. I made a lot of friends in the library during my preparation. Many of them were hippies and who had a lot of time on their hands to help me and coach me and teach me the American lingo. I was so grateful to them. Then came the big moment. The test was given to me in a private room. The lady said, "You have, take as much as time you want." To my surprise, the test was only English comprehension. I thought there would be a lot of questions on math, algebra, geometry, and sciences that I would not even have passed. So I was so happy because I knew how to speak English as I ran around with missionary kids back home in India. Upon completing my test, the lady said, "Wait here. I will have someone grade your test and get back to you." She came back after 30 minutes with a sad look on her face and said, "Sorry, Solomon, you scored 35 out of 100. You totally failed. You need to go back to the elementary or middle school and complete your education." I was so discouraged and shedding so many tears that the lady sat next to me and comforted me and said, "You need to secure a better foundation." After I left her side and walked away and headed down the main street and turned the corner, I heard footsteps running after me again. It was the lady. She said, she appealed to the dean once again that I would be admitted on probation for 2 semesters. This has been a big break for me. I took 3 years to finish college after getting many D's, W's, retaking classes and dropping them before I finally completed. A few years ago, my son, Judah Darwin, ended up going to the same college where I studied. As a student, he served as the president of the public speaking club, and he invited me to be his first speaker since he took charge. I asked him that I would not come. I told him I would not come and said, it would be a terrible place for me because I had so many bad memories there and thoughts of suicide and hopelessness. He said it was too late. The posters were up. Many students signed up to attend, and they all love my black beard. At this special event, the dean introduced me to the students with lofty accolades. I got up and said, "Sir, I'm not the brilliant student that you made me out to be. In fact, if you check your records, you'll find that I was one of your poorest students, maybe the worst student. I'm very sure that none of your students received as many D's and W's or F's as I had earned. So I was one of your first janitors in this college back then. See all those big trees out the window? I planted them as your first gardener. If someone told me during those days I would someday manage a large bank, or the largest bank in the world back then, as Senior Vice President of Finance at Bank of America, I would have laughed and said, no chance that I would ever make it there. Nor would I believed if someone said that one day I would be a professor at USC or later at UC Berkeley. I would have said, not in a million years. How could I teach at a university where I would not even be admitted, even as a student? How could it be possible for me to teach subjects there, subjects which I have not even studied or taken in college? As I concluded, I said to the students at Skyline College that I stand here only because of the grace of God. I said there are no shortcuts. Perseverance really pays off. Let me end with a short story about a minister who asked a young man after he delivered his commencement speech. Following the ceremony, he ran into this very confident looking young man and said to him, "Young man, what are your plans?" The young man said, "Sir, I have big plans for my career and great plans for my future." "That is wonderful," said the minister. "What is so big about your plans? And what is so great about your future?" He said, "Sir, after this, I plan to go to Harvard and get an MBA to learn about how to set up my own company." The minister said, "That's wonderful. What will you do after that?" Then he said, "I will go to Yale Law School and learn how to protect my company." The minister said, "That is wonderful. What will you do after that?" "I will start my own company. As the founder and CEO, I will hire lots of smart people like me to make lots of money." The minister said, "That is wonderful. What will you do after that?" "I will then look for the prettiest girl in the world and marry her to raise a family." The minister said, "That's wonderful. What will you do after that?" "I will build myself a beautiful home on the ocean side and enjoy life with my family." The minister said, "That's wonderful. What will you do after that?" "I will work toward my retirement and build a beautiful retirement cabin in the countryside and live peacefully ever after." The minister looked at the young man with much disappointment and said, "Young man, your plans are too small. They're too small. Your plans need to be big. They need to be really big. They need to be big enough to include people and great enough to include God." Over the years, I counseled many students, and I find this is a typical response. It's all about them, nothing beyond them. If your plans do not include people around you and people all around the world that are hurting and need your help, I say to you that your plans are too small. As we look around you and beyond you at the world, people are facing problems today. And we need to solve them and that includes all of us. The boat on which we are all in is sinking. The problems are big and need to be addressed. The major ones include poverty, inequality, climate change, health crisis, conflict, and violence. These problems are interconnected and require a collective effort from all of us. United Nations identified 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, that aim to tackle these challenges to create more sustainable and equitable environment. It is tragic that despite the exponential rise in knowledge and technology since the industrial era, the wealth gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen. Research indicates that top 1% of the population holds an increasingly larger share of wealth, while the bottom 90% experience a decline. The rich get richer, while the bottom 90% struggle to keep up with the rising costs of living, housing, education, and healthcare. The gap between the rich and the poor since 1970s is getting bigger, wider, and worse, with no end in sight. According to the RAND research report, over $50 trillion in wealth was transferred from the working class to the rich, the top 1% during the last 40 years. This needs to change. The bottom of the pyramid is getting bigger, and the top is getting smaller. This phenomena is not in the United States, it's all over the world, it's global. Those at the top hold their wealth, authority, and control, influencing policies that govern our political and business landscape. Globalization has contributed to this gap as the wealth accumulates among shareholders of large multinational firms. Additionally, globalization has reduced the bargaining power of the unskilled workers, resulting in lower wages. Family inheritance perpetuates the cycle of inequality by transferring wealth across generations. It is clear from the data that the technology and innovation empowers the small minority of the rich and powerful. How can that change? You can change that today with the actions you take. I will make a bold statement here. The knowledge and technology produced by all the Ivy Leagues universities around the world is totally useless to 90% of the people in the world. What good is technology if it only empowers the few on the top of the pyramid to become richer? Here is Dr. Martin Luther King's famous quote. I have two quotes from him. The first one is, everybody can be great because everybody can serve. What Dr. King is saying, you can be great if you're willing to serve others. His second quote, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Dr. King is asking you today, what are you doing for others? I have 4 suggestions. Start small. You need not start big. Start small and finish big. Start with people that God put around your life and your community. Seek out role models. Identify people that work toward solving global challenges and seek their guidance and mentorship. This will keep you motivated. I was with Warren Buffett a few years ago with my students who he invited us to his home, and one of my students asked, what contributed to your great success, sir, as the world's wealthiest man? And he said, having great role models. My father, my hardworking father, was a great role model for me, and I attribute all that success. So having role models in your life is very, very important. Number 3, use your skills. Identify your skills and strengthen and consider how you can use them to change the global landscape. Lastly, advocate change. Raise awareness about global issues. Advocate them through policy change. And this is very, very important. You all could be activists. It is not about how you start, but how you finish. May you all finish big. Let me conclude with a blessing upon each one of you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Thank you, Professor Darwin, for your inspiring address, for your example. Your story makes me extraordinarily proud to be part of this institution. Your story and the story of so many others who have graduated from GGU. Thank you immensely for that commencement address.